Hey, Margie here. Wouldn't it be nice if there was a supplement we could take that can actually enhance the benefits of our workout? Well, there is, and it's called creatine, and it's been shown to increase osteoblast activity when combined with strength training, as well as improve your brain, your skin, and even jet lag. So I'm so excited to delve into creatine today with our very special guest, JJ Virgin. And as a triple board certified nutrition expert and fitness Hall of Famer, JJ is a passionate advocate of the healing power of nutrition and is on a mission to change the way the world sees aging and longevity. She founded the Mindshare Health Business Growth Collective, which I'm so happy to be part of for many years. And this also supports some of the most influential health leaders in the world. JJ has published 4 New York Times best-selling books and is a prominent media personality, including appearances on PBS, Dr. Oz, Rachel Ray, Access Hollywood, and The Today Show. So today we're going to talk about a patented new product she's created to support women of all ages, but especially women over 40 years old. So there's lots of great information in this interview, so stay tuned. Welcome, JJ. I'm just so excited to have you here on the podcast. I love what you're talking about, and especially things that can make a big difference in our lives. And so I'm really excited for what you're going to share, and just thank you for all the work you do and for being here today.
Well, right back at you, my friend.
Okay, so this community is made up of bone health enthusiasts. And before you talk about your new product, which I think is amazing, and creatine, because people don't know about this, why do you think bone health is just so important? Because you work with so many people, but what's your thoughts on why bone health is just something we absolutely all have to pay attention to?
You know, it's interesting. Like, if you look at everyone now finally getting on the bandwagon of health span, not lifespan, I started to look at this years ago and went, I think osteoporosis is going to become one of our biggest risk factors out there, especially for women who have maintained their weight for so many years by diet alone. And in fact, there's even a name for them. I think you've heard it, the TOFI, the thin outside, fat inside. It's like that sarcopenic obesity that's meaning they've been losing muscle all this time, not prioritizing that. And when you really think about bone density, it's actually a lagging indicator of not prioritizing building muscle. And for so long, thankfully, this is all starting to turn right now, but for so long, I got flack. I've literally been taking women to the gym for 40 plus years, right? And I mean, I have dealt with all the, I don't want to, that's too heavy, I'm going to get big, all the craziness. And I feel like it's finally starting to turn now where women are especially realizing this. So this is where we have to focus. It's so cool that you can not only, build bone at this age, but also turn it around. And I feel like, let's use everything we possibly can in our toolbox to have the best bones ever, because my whole thing now is I want to be built to last. I want to be in my 80s and 90s and doing all the fun stuff, right?
I couldn't agree more. And what I'm seeing, which is just so empowering, is that it is never too late. That's the beautiful thing. Yes, maybe we wish we would have done things earlier, but at any age, I'm seeing women building muscles, improving their bone densities, and feeling, strength is powerful. And when you have that and you go into life, it's just a whole different way of living. So it's such a win-win, and it just excites me. And it's one of the things that when you have this diagnosis of osteoporosis or even osteopenia, motivates people. All of a sudden where, maybe I'll exercise, they're so motivated. And when they start doing serious strength training and resistance and really getting into this type of program, just, truly miracles happen. And they look back and this was all a blessing in disguise. So let's talk about creatine, because it's not something that most of us are taking. And, it's something that a lot of younger people are taking, but there's such amazing, amazing benefits. So why don't you share how this can really help our bones and why this is, why you got so involved with this. And we'll get more into that. But why don't you let's go back to the basics about what creatine is and what it can do and how it helps us.
Okay, in full disclosure, and I think I mentioned this to you earlier, like if, how they'll ask you on an interview, what would you go back and tell your younger self? And I've known about creatine because I've been in the fitness industry. So I've known about creatine for over 40 years. However, and I was at what is known as the Mecca of bodybuilding in Venice, California, Gold's Gym. And all the guys, all the bros were taking creatine. And, in my brain, creatine was like, steroids. And I was like, I'm not touching that. I don't want to look like them. I'm not touching that. And so I always thought it was just something for the guys. And I should have known better. How ridiculous. And literally, it was a couple years ago as I really started to focus on aging powerfully. What do we need to do? And as you said, Margie, focusing on the big things. I feel like we are a society now that's looking for shortcuts or looking for, should I do red light? And I'm like, well, you're not lifting weights. So I think you're focusing the wrong direction, or they're worried about like a lectin in a plant versus like they're not eating enough polyphenol.
True. So
I'm like, right? I'm like, can we major in the majors here? But
can I just say something that's so true in that with bone density, all these nuances come out and, if I only take this, it's not a quick fix, unfortunately. But when you do the work, it's amazing. So
and it's not one thing. They're like, I should have alkaline water. That will fix it. I'm like, well, not if your vitamin D sucks, I mean, it's like there's all these things, and let's go with the biggest levers first. And I love that you talked about strength training because obviously it's a huge lever and one I've been pulling on for years. It used to get me so frustrated because back in the day, was like, oh no, you can do everything you need for your bones with walking. I'm like, no, you can't. Push weights over your head. So a couple of years ago, I was really decided to double down into powerful aging selfishly because I'm, was getting ready to turn 60 and I'm like, I want to be in the best shape of my life. I'm not going to buy into all the crazy stuff I'm hearing online about what happens as we age. Forget it. And as I started to look into all of that, I kept coming across creatine in the research. And so I took it for myself. I'm always the N of one guinea pig. And I did everything that you hear about with creatine monohydrate where you load it, and I took it, and I noticed a difference right away in the gym with what I was able to do. And so one of the benefits of creatine, I'll explain how it works, is that it's going to give you more energy, both in your muscles and your brain, so that you can work out harder. And if you can work out harder, guess what's going to happen? You're going to have better muscles and better bones, right? So creatine, it's interesting. Our bodies have about 100 to 140 grams of creatine in them. It's stored in our muscles, 95% in muscle, 5% in brain. And so you'll hear the benefits of creatine in your muscles, of course, but also you'll hear things about it with depression, about TBIs, about neurocognitive benefits, especially if someone's starting to have any kind of decline. So there's a lot more to it than just, I can work out harder, and that's important. But we make about 1 gram a day from a couple amino acids, methionine, arginine, and glycine. We need to get another 1 gram or 2 from our diet every day. And so in order to get it from our diet, you would need to eat at least 1 pound of nearly raw, very rare meat or fish. And if you're cooking that, because that basically denatures a lot of this, destroys a lot of the creatine, you'd need to be at least 2 pounds. I look at all the women that I know, and so many of them are more focused on plant-based eating. And if they are eating protein, they're getting about half of what they should be getting, because they're following it's like they're not even getting the recommended daily intake, which is abysmal, much less where they really should be. So we are not getting the creatine we need in the first place. And women have less muscle mass than men, so we have lower tissue stores of creatine. So if anything, women would need more creatine, not less. So that's the first thing, is like, this is something that's orthomolecular in our body. We need to be supplying it. So I started taking it. I started taking this form called creatine monohydrate because, and I'm embarrassed to admit this because I'm usually one of those people who's critically open-minded, but I just was listening to everybody out there and all the scientists, and they're like, use creatine monohydrate because it's the most studied form of creatine. Now, that's sort of like saying, use a land-based phone line because it's the oldest type of, phone communication. Don't upgrade the iPhone. It's like, wait a minute, right? Or get on the old prop plane. So that was the first part, is I kept hearing that. So I was using it. And what happened was once I started to really dig into the benefits, and it wasn't just that it's great for helping you work out harder, because creatine is part of the phosphocreatine system. This is our fast energy system. And when I talk about aging powerfully, it's really about what do we need to do to maintain muscle, but especially maintain strength and power as we age, our fast twitch muscle fibers. Creatine, which is part of creatine phosphate, is a hugely important energy system for that. It helps us quickly create ATP, quickly be able to do hard things. And, when you do hard things, you teach your body you can do hard things. And the more you can do, the more you do, the more you can do. So that's the first thing with creatine, is it's going to help us work out harder. It's going to help us think better, right? And so I'm now telling all these women to take it. It's kind of the ultimate menopausal formula when you think about it. It helps with bone mineral density, helps with brain health, helps with cardiovascular health. There just was a study that came out that showed that it helps with your arterial walls. So I was like, wow, this is incredible. And I started getting all this backlash. This makes me, in fact, one of my best friends, who is a functional medicine doctor, who's the same age as me, she's like, no, I just can't take it. I tried it. I feel bloated. I feel, I'm retaining all this food. I'm not going to do it. And I'm like, and she's sarcopenic. I'm like, come on, I'm like, you're like the poster child of who needs this. And it turns out, and this study is about to be published, I cannot wait till it is, that 76% of people will report bloating, gas, fluid retention from taking creatine monohydrate. So I'm digging into this going, what the heck? And it just so happened that I was lecturing at the Integrative Healthcare Symposium.
Oh, I was there. I was at that talk. Yeah.
So I was at that talk, and I was talking about, and it's the first time they've had an exercise, something on exercise, right? And I talked about creatine. Well, the formulator of a better form of creatine, which I'm going to talk about, was there and approached me later on LinkedIn. He didn't get to me at the event, and talked about this other form of creatine. Now, I had heard all the buzz out there that every other form of creatine is BS and they're just more expensive and it's marketing and blah, blah, blah. But meanwhile, I'm getting from my community, I'm bloated, I'm not going to take it. And I'm like, no, but you have to take it. Just work through it. And they're like, I'm not. So all this stuff's grumbling. So this formulator, Mark Faulkner, says, I came from toxicology. I'm a biochemist, and I created a better form creatine because all my athletes, when we were drug testing them and they couldn't take the other stuff, they needed something better. And so I'm looking at this, and it's sounds too good to be true, and I'm critically open-minded, but still critically skeptical because I'd heard all this is marketing, right? So I actually go to this guy's plant in Nebraska, which is interesting to begin with because all of the creatine, except for one that's in Germany, all the rest are in China. So there's no U.S. creatine, U.S. made. So I go to this plant, and he has now done all of the research looking at creatine monohydrate and absorption studies and creatine HCl and comparing them. And what the reality is with creatine monohydrate, it's pretty obvious if you think about the math at all. So if we need to take in about 1 gram of creatine a day, maybe 2. Creatine monohydrate dosing, you'll hear it that we need 3 to 5 grams a day, and sometimes with bigger men, 7 to 10 grams. Well, if we need 1 to 2 grams, why are we taking 3 to 10 grams? It doesn't make any sense. Turns out that only about 15% of creatine is absorbed. As it hits the stomach, it starts turning into creatinine, which you'll see in lab tests, and people get all freaked out about. So like, my kidneys. I'm like, no. Unless other kidney markers are up, it's just your body getting rid of creatinine. It doesn't matter. But you're getting a lot of that turning over in the intestines. You're not getting or in the stomach, you're not getting that. You're getting a very small percentage of it. If you use little bits, you'll get some of it. But the more you use, the more is wasted. And so you're getting all of that side effect stuff that people don't like. And with the type that he created, it's 99% absorbed. So you don't get any of the side effects. And so I'm looking at this, I'm like, oh, this is the best creatine for women. My husband's like, it's SHEatine. And I go, okay. It was so fun. So anyway, I kind of got on this mission, Margie, that I'm like, I'm going to get the world of menopausal women. I mean, I think every woman starting when she's, a kid should be on this, but especially as we start to move into those years where we're really like accelerating muscle and bone loss, we better be on it. But I knew that they weren't going to take creatine monohydrate. I'd already gotten enough pushback. So now I'm on a mission with this. And so that's the story with creatine. That's what I've now, like, everything I'm doing is like, get on creatine. Now, here's the reality. Creatine, if you say, I'm going to take it. Plus, it also helps your skin, by the way. It's like amazing for skin. It also helps your immune system. There's going to be a lot more research coming out about it, but we're thinking about it to help with bone mineral density and bone remodeling. Just know that it's helping your heart, it's helping your brain, it's helping your bones, it's helping your muscles. It's something that we should be getting that we're not. And that's the big reality. It's not like we're taking an herb that our body's like, that's acting more like a drug. This is something we're supposed to be getting in our diet and we're not getting in our diet. And we're helping get it into your diet without any of the side effects of one that really isn't able to work the way it should. So that's kind of my mission now with this, is to get creatine to everybody, but it has to go hand in hand with everything that you've been talking about. It has to go hand in hand with doing resistance training. In fact, the research on bone mineral density and creatine shows that when you put creatine and resistance training together, it is an exponential impact on your bones, better than just resistance training. Creatine on its own, you're not going to see much. But if you do creatine with resistance training, it's like, 1 + 1 = 3. So it has to be done. It's just like eating protein. We know protein will help with some skeletal muscle mass, but you really need to lift some weights alongside it, right? It's the same thing with creatine.
Oh, first of all, I didn't know the story. I can't get over that after
I know, and you were there.
Yeah, that's funny though. I love when the synchronicity of universe, when there were a lot of lectures at that time and there were a lot of very good talks. So just that he happened to be, I guess that made sense if he was.
He heard, he's like, this gal's talking about creatine. It was like, who talks about, no one's, I think there's going to be a lot more talk in the medical community about creatine. Anyway, and here's the interesting thing. So you'll hear this, and I'm just setting everybody up because they're going to hear this stuff. The most research is creatine monohydrate. Okay, but it's actually not the monohydrate that's doing the effect. They're looking at the effect of creatine in the body. Monohydrate just happens to be a carrier. It's just not the best carrier, right? Just like you have different forms of magnesium. Those different forms of magnesium, some of them we know work a lot better. Like I'd rather take magnesium glycinate than oxide, right?
Absolutely.
So it's kind of similar to that. And so you'll hear, well, all those other ones are more expensive. Well, the reality is when you only need a seventh of the dose, it's not as expensive when you compare things. So it's interesting, and I'm just prepping people because you'll hear all this buzz out there. And in fact, it's so ridiculous, Margie, that at a sports science conference coming up in San Diego, they're having a panel called Creatine Wars, where they're having I'm like, you can't make this stuff up. And I go, what if these are just different carriers? People can use their preference. If someone feels fine on monohydrate, great. But I work with women. Anything that could possibly hint at fluid retention, even if it's on like some of it's in the muscle, that's good. They're like, like,
no, it's so true, because that's what you hear. Oh, creatine, it increases the water retention in your muscles and people gain weight. And so a lot of people are afraid, oh yeah, you'll blow, but then that will go away down the road. So what have you seen? Wait, let's go on now.
Yeah. And what is interesting is when I did the loading dose of creatine, which used to be the way. So I went back to the old bro way of doing this, where you load for a week, because it takes, when you use creatine, you have to get your tissue stores up. You're like topping off the tank. And then you keep it going. Oh, the other thing that creatine's amazing for is jet lag and sleep deprivation. I'll talk about that in one sec, so just remind me. But yeah, like that's been the biggest game changer ever for me. But what you'll see, I mean, so some people might be fine with it, but when I did that loading dose, oh my God, the GI stuff like was just hideous, like diarrhea, GI gas, too much information. But, so what I'm hearing now is none of that. I literally had one gal, because I got like I ran out immediately, sadly, but I put some friends on it and they're like, my trainer noticed in 3 sessions. And I'm like, wow, like by session 3, he's like, what are you doing? And I think that's really what I like to start one thing at a time when I'm doing, when I'm adding in a supplement, I do one thing at a time. And I like to check. And if I can notice that I'm significantly stronger, like basically your muscles have more energy. They can generate more power. Think about how cool that is. So if you're doing high intensity interval training, if you're doing jump training, if you're doing resistance training, all of a sudden you've got more energy to put into that. How cool is that? Now, I travel and switch time zones a bunch, and I've always been one of those people that even going back and forth from the West Coast to the East Coast of the United States, I'd struggle. I mean, I go, this is ridiculous, but it would just throw me. In fact, I'd have in my calendar, I'd have to do time zone adjusting for the week back and forth, right? Not anymore. Like last year I went from the United States to Europe, like this was all within a month. United States, Europe, United States, Europe, Europe, US, Canada, right? So all these, it was like literally shifting time zones like crazy with zero issue because I just hit myself with more creatine. It turns out creatine is amazing for time zone adjusting. In fact, they started doing studies on it with sleep deprivation, finding that if you have sleep deprivation, if you take extra, so you have your foundational dose. I tell people like 750 to 1 milligrams to 1 gram is like a foundational dose of the HCl. I mixed it with taurine and magnesium for a reason though, which I'll talk about. But if you do that and then you're going to have jet lag, take a little bit more and then take a little bit more. Like when we were in Spain, and we were there and I was like, I want to take a nap. No, I'm not. I'm just going to have some creatine and keep going. And I had no issues. It was amazing.
Wow, this is incredible.
I know.
I can't I just have to tell people I take so many things and I take protein, amino acids, but I have not, I just haven't, I can't wait. Now I'm starting this. So everybody, I'm going to.
Now you're my goal was to have you do it beforehand and share a story. So now you're going to have to share the story of it. But now you have the reasons why, which I think are really important. Back when I used to see people one-on-one, they would come in with bags of supplements they never took because they didn't know why they were doing it, right? So now you know why. This is something you should have in your body. We aren't getting from diet enough like we should. We're not, eating 2 pounds of cooked meat or 1 pound of rare or raw. So this is something that you need to get, and this is an easy way to get it. I also put magnesium and taurine with it because I was reading research that showed that just like creatine plus resistance training is better for bone density than either of them on their own. Same with magnesium and creatine for performance. Both of them together, like either one of them are helpful, but together it was like another 1 + 1 = 3. And then taurine actually helps make creatine kinase, which is an important enzyme that helps that creatine phosphate system generate energy. So I was like, well, this is a logical little trifecta. So that's what I put together.
Hi, Margie here. I just want to tell you about something really exciting coming up, the 2025 Happy Bones Roadmap. I recently completed the More Natural Approaches to Osteoporosis and Bone Health Summit, and it was such a huge success. I received so many thank you notes telling me that people now had more knowledge and tools they could put into their life to help their bones. But the thing that's missing is a path forward, a step-by-step approach. So following the summit, what I have is this roadmap, and it's 4 classes. They're on consecutive Wednesdays starting February 12th at 12 o'clock noon Eastern Standard Time. But everything's recorded, so if you can't make the live classes, it's not a problem. And what they are is they start out, the first class is all about evaluation and testing. What test will really help you determine the best treatment for you? So we go through testing. Then the next class is on exercise. What do you need to do? What's really moving the needle? And what resources do you have? So we go through, so you understand what needs to be done to really get the most benefit from your exercise program. Third class is on nutrition, both food and supplements. What do you really need to add to your diet that's going to be most helpful? And the last class is on stress and happiness, because I know this is such a big part of bone health, and oftentimes we just don't include that because we don't really know where to start. So I give you some tools, easy tweaks, things you can put into your life that not only are going to help your bones, but are going to let you have a happier life. So that's the class. Those are the 4 classes. Then I have 8 on-demand classes with experts as well that are included. So we have Qigong, I have a strength training class, a pelvic floor class, Eastern medicine techniques class. So there's really great classes. And this, you get to keep this. This doesn't go away. And you'll always have the replays, continual access. Anyway, normally I charge $197 for this whole program. But because of the summit, I wanted people to have this. So I'm giving everyone a $150 discount, so it's only $47. So make sure to click the link in the show notes, and I hope you join us. Now back to the show. Let's do specifics then. How much do people take? What form is it in? When do you take it?
So I created capsules and powder because I really love, I love to go to the gym and I take my essential aminos. I love that I'm hearing you do aminos. I think this is another one of those products that you look at and go, every woman, unless you know you're getting everything you need from your diet, like you are dialed, should be taking essential aminos. I think it's like a great insurance policy to make sure you're getting what you need and you have it on board. You don't have the amino acids you need, your body, it's like saying, you know what? I need some for some wood for the fireplace. I think I'm going to cut down a wall in the house. That's what, it's like, that's what you have to do when you do, when you don't have enough aminos, you steal from your muscle. Bad. So I go to the gym with electrolytes, essential amino acids, and my creatine. And so I made a creatine powder that's got a nice little orange flavor. And then I also have capsules, because what I'll do is I'll take my capsules every day and then I'll take another hit when I'm going to the gym. For most people, like the foundational amount is going to be about 750 milligrams, 3 capsules or a scoop, up to a gram. And then, which would be 4 capsules. And then I like to hit another scoop when I'm going to the gym. Doesn't really have to be right then. I just psychologically probably feel like, oh, boom, But as you're getting to your right tissue stores, it matters. But once you're where you want to be, you're really just trying to keep the tank topped off, right? But so look at things that would create more need for creatine: stress, sleep deprivation, heavy workouts. So in those situations, I think all of us are probably under all of that. So 2 doses a day are going to be better than 1. And that's what I do. Now, if I'm traveling, I'll potentially push another one in too, like switching time zones, or I'm not
Can
getting
you overdose, or what happens if you take too much?
If you overdosed on creatine HCl, and you'd have to really overdose. And I was talking about this with the creator of this better creatine, Mark Faulkner. And then if you really overdose, like let's say you decide you're going to take 10 doses, then you might notice some fluid retention. So at the point that you notice fluid retention, you went too far. You'd have to really push it. I think you'd probably have to take a bottle of my product in order to do that. And the magnesium would shut you down. You'd be in the bathroom before you'd overdose on creatine. So for the most of us, having 1 or 2 of those servings a day is going to be perfect. You'll feel it. They did that study on postmenopausal women with depression. I don't know if you've seen that study where they looked at them with taking the antidepressant, and then they added in creatine and had a like significant, the women were able to get off their medication faster and stay out of depression, those that were using the creatine. So pretty extreme.
It's amazing. I just love when we have muscle, we help our bones, we help our brains, we have energy. So it's just one of those things that's just going to significantly improve the quality of life. So I can't wait because my quality of life is good. So I can't even imagine now another boost. And how soon will I notice it? How soon will I see a difference in my strength training?
It depends how low your creatine stores are. It depends how empty your gas tank is. And so, what you could do to start is double your dose for a week or two. And then see, again, I did loading doses, and I just don't think you need to do it. In general, to get to where you need to be to get your gas tank to that topped off place usually takes 3 to 4 weeks. But if you doubled it, probably a week or two. And what should you notice? Really good focus, good mood, more energy all throughout the day. The big thing creatine helps you do is create that energy. And then you'll notice how, you just will feel like I felt like I could push 30% more. In fact, my weights all went up at the gym. And that's saying a lot. I started lifting weights when I was 16. 16 in the high school football gym because there was no gyms for girls back then. So, it is really hard once you've been lifting weights for a long time to make gains. The newbie gains. When you first start lifting weights, it's like, oh my gosh, I was lifting 5 pounds, now it's 10, now it's 15, now it's 20. I mean, it's like now you're like eking out little things. But I made major shifts and it is why here I am at 61 and I'm literally in the same body composition shape I was in my 20s. However, I'm even stronger than I was in my 20s. And I believe it's the creatine shift.
Wow. Well, I can't wait because I'm stronger than I've ever been just because I've been doing major strength training. So I can't wait to take this. That's so
I can't wait to hear. You're a perfect little test bunny.
And so is there anyone that should not take this or any warnings of people because everybody's listening and thinking,
there's a lot of weird myths out there about creatine. Remember, this is something that we make in our body. We just don't make enough. And then we get it supplied by diet, but we don't get enough. So the reality is it's no. However, the only caveat would be, I've got a friend with one kidney. And even the friend with one kidney, it's like, well, let's start with the low dose and test. But if someone had kidney issues, I'd have them talk to their doctor. Now, a couple things that you'll hear out there in the urban legend world is that it causes hair loss.
Yes, I've heard that's
okay,
a myth.
Here's the craziest one with that. It was 20-year-old male soccer players, and what they measured was an increase in DHT levels. They didn't screen them to see if they were taking any other things. Like testosterone or anything, right? Or steroids. All they did was but it didn't even cause hair loss. They just noticed an increase in that. And then this whole thing came out like that. Okay, so there's never been anything showing that. And you might see, although I would really doubt it with HCl, it's more likely to be something you'd see with monohydrate because of that conversion to creatinine. But you may see a little rise in creatinine. You'll also see a rise in creatinine if you're working out hard. Where you don't want to see is any of your other, kidney functions going off, but that's not an issue with creatine. So, and remember, the studies you're seeing on creatine where they might say, okay, but it's creatine monohydrate. Actually, creatine HCl is the only one that gets to the brain. So that's another really important one. Some of our people from the Mindshare community that do brain research, I connected them up with Mark so that they could get this for their brain research because they were having to use such high doses of the other stuff that people were dropping out. For that reason, they weren't compliant because of the side effects. So that's a very cool thing too. So really, no, what are the, this is one of those ones that has side benefits, not side effects. There isn't really anything you need to worry about, that would be a problem taking with it. I love to start one thing at a time.
Versus on an empty stomach?
Doesn't matter whatsoever. It doesn't matter.
Well, that's why I
Doesn't
was
need to
so
be
excited.
going to the gym, doesn't matter. Mm-mm.
That's why I was so excited about it, because there's research. There's a tremendous amount of research on the benefits, and there really aren't, as you said, there's really, all those other things that you heard were complete myths, not based on anything.
Yeah. And same with the pharmacokinetics of it. Like I've got the research showing how much of monohydrates actually absorbed and utilized versus how much of HCl is. So just remember, when you're seeing research, the active thing doing the difference is creatine. It's not the monohydrate, it's not the HCl. These are the things that help it get, help your body get it, but it's the creatine that you're looking for that's making the difference. So this idea that you should only use this thing, creatine monohydrate, I'm like, yeah, it's just a poor carrier. It just doesn't make any sense.
So crazy. Now, wait, since you called it SHEatine, which, most of the people in this community are women, but men have so the question is, do men take this as well?
Yes. So here's what's funny, because, my husband named it and he's taking it. And I just was like, you know what? You guys got all the stuff out there. We don't have the stuff. And I really wanted to position it as here's a non-bloating product that a woman made for women in the United States, which is even cooler. But my husband just puts his finger over the S. He goes, it's SHEatine. So we were thinking, you know what? For Father's Day, we'll just duct tape over that S.
Nobody wants the side effects. To me, this is brilliant, JJ. I was
Who wants the side effects?
Right.
And who doesn't want, I know it's preliminary data coming out with the taurine, with anti-aging, but taurine's an amazing amino acid that's a neurotransmitter that's good for longevity and fatigue. I mean, there's a reason they put it in Red Bull, right? So it's another one. And, in the plant-based world, because so many people are doing more plant-based diets, they're not going to get the creatine, they're not going to get the taurine.
So true. And wait, I love the benefit of the skin. I can't wait to start this.
Yes, I know, right? Anything skin. I'm working on something specifically for skin too.
Oh, this is so great. So what did we miss? What did we miss in terms of creatine? Is there anything else that...
Let's see. So there's another study coming over. So supports rapid cell turnover. So it's anti-aging, fuels neurons, improves the mood, promotes cellular energy, helps with PMS. For anyone out there who has that, I'm so happy.
Inflammation, right? We did miss something. Inflammation.
Yeah. And decreases hot flashes. There's also some really interesting stuff coming out with it for fertility. But,
wow.
I know no one here, that's not a thing. But there is stuff coming out about fertility, which is kind of fun. Let's see if I missed anything. But the big thing, again, that I want to mention is lift weights, take creatine. Don't take creatine and sit on the couch. Just don't sit on the couch. Studies show that creatine supplementation in conjunction with resistance training can increase bone mineral density and help preserve or enhance bone density in older adults, particularly in places like the femoral neck. So,
Mitch, let's talk about that for a minute. The femoral neck is the area that we're most worried about, because a lot of people aren't strengthened. It's the weakest point, and that's where the hip fractures occur. Because and especially people who are just walking as an exercise, because they're not
not enough.
Not in a
Jump on a box.
Right, exactly, to really get the area. So, wow, especially
do some squats, do some overhead presses, jump on a box. It says creatine affects the energy supply for osteoblast activity. They're still trying to figure out why, but that's what it does. So it helps bone remodeling. I mean, so it's really, and again, preliminary work. My buddy is starting to do research on menopausal women. So excited.
I have some people I'm going to who are researchers. So I have some people in mind that we have to talk about, because
he loves doing studies. So
yeah, especially with people who are doing significant strength training. So how interesting to do with and without creatine, if it could.
I know. I'd hate to be in the control group.
Oh, this is just so wonderful. And thank you. I know you're very kind to share a special offer for everybody listening to the podcast.
Oh, yes. Everybody is going to get 10% off. So they can use Margie 10 and put the number 10, Margie, the number 10. to get your special deal on this. And that goes on everything. So you can do subscribe and save more. So yes, make
And I
it
just want you
easy.
to share, because you're such a role model. You've been into exercise way before anyone was into exercise. I mean, I'm a physical therapist, so I've also been into exercise. But just share what you've seen, because it's so exciting. And I love to hear the stories. The couch potato who's now extra, it's just so life enhancing and empowering. And we can just get better as we age. And I know you live that and you've seen that with so many people. So you want to just share a little bit about that?
It's super fun because I just started doing the beta programs for my next book. So it started first with starting to do talks. So for a year, I started speaking it, year and a half. And I just got an email last night from a woman. She goes, I heard you talk. And I was committed to a plant-based diet philosophically. She goes, but the way you explained what we needed in terms of protein, and I didn't tell her, hey, she couldn't be. I was like, we need to get these essential aminos. Here's what you're going to, yeah. She goes, I just decided to go eat a steak. And she goes, and then I've heard you on the resistance training, so I added it in. And so she goes, here I am now. I've dropped fat. I'm stronger than ever. Here at 60, like she says, the turnaround's been crazy just by, the couple. And again, the big rocks, like what are the big rocks as we age? It's doing consistent resistance training and adding in some power moves into that. So, of course, foundationally, we've got to get our form really great, get our connective tissue great, get our muscles and nerves firing. Once you have that foundation where you can do a squat well, I'm a big squat fan. My favorite exercises are squats because they load those hips and spine. Overhead presses, same reason, stand up and do it. Push-ups, because we can do them anywhere. I want to aspire to be the grandma who did 100 and what was it? Or no, 1,000. Didn't she do like 1,500 and something? And people were complaining about her form. I'm like, dude, you need to shed it. And bent over rows, because in life we have to bend over and pick things up. So I love bent over rows, farmer's carries. Once you get used to doing this stuff, then start to add in some power, do some snatches and kettlebell swings and jumps, things that add some speed into your work. Because in life, we got to get out of the way. We got to be agile. And so you do that piece of it. You get your protein in. I think it's easiest just to think of that gram per pound of target body weight and, push it a little bit more if you are plant-based, add some essential amino acids in, and then add the creatine in, and you're going to go, what the heck? It's like,
I know. I love women changing tires and women doing everything. And it's great. It's all doable. We're not making this up.
And I don't know if it's just my feed on Instagram now, because now I've got the grandmas out there. Of course, I'm old enough to be a grandma, but the grandmas out there now, and to me now a grandma is someone who's 90, right? So it's funny how old age has gotten so much older than, I think 60 is considered old age. And I'm like, no, it's not. That's like 80.
I just turned 66, so 60 is young. James.
Yeah, it's young. So young. But you're seeing people now in their 80s doing big barbell deadlifts. I'm like, this is so awesome. It's so awesome. It's fabulous.
I agree.
That would be the senior powerlifting Olympics and stuff, right?
We're headed that way. And that's what I see. I've gotten so many thank yous for people because they were, whether it's the summit or whatever, that they started a weight training program. And, just thank you so much.
It's so great, right? Because you notice it right away. It changes how you feel. When you do hard things, you show your body and your brain, you're like, I can do hard things, right?
Right. It's empowering to every aspect.
Because you hear about as we age, we're like, oh, as you age, you should probably move into a 1-story house. I go, no, you should move into a 3-story house. You should move into a 3-story house, and you should have the kitchen on the top and the bathroom on the bottom. And you should have to run up and down those stairs. In fact, carry heavy stuff up the stairs. No elevators, no nothing. We shouldn't do less as we age. We need to do more as we age.
I love it. And I have to just give you so much credit for creating this and knowing there were problems. And you didn't just sit there and say, well, just suck it up, just take it. That you went out of your way when you found something and you really learned what you can do to make a big difference for people. So I can't wait. I will report back to everybody. And
Yay.
yeah, and I'm really excited. And I just had to have you on here. Normally, I don't have people on until I've totally tested it, but I know you really well, and I've heard so many great things and people who are taking it that I wanted to let people know about it so they can join me and try it out. And because it's just there's just so many.
And I want to hear all the stories. Like I want to hear all. Like I'm starting to now get. We sold out of our first batch like that. I'm like, okay, now I want to hear the stories. And then people couldn't even get their next batch in. I'm like, oh, so now we got a huge, I was like, stock up, right? So now I want to start to hear the stories. And again, what you want to pay attention to is track your total body water and track your body composition. Track your strength at the gym, because all of a sudden you're going to go, I can do more. Same with your HIIT training, your high intensity interval training. You'll be able to do more. And just see how you feel too. How's your focus and your mood and your brain energy, which is so big. And then, test it out with jet lag. If you've got anything coming up jet laggy-ish, because boy, or you don't have a great night's sleep, what a difference. It's fantastic.
Oh, well, JJ, thank you. Any last minute things we want to say? This has been fantastic. And I'm so grateful for you to take the time. I know how busy you are, but I just think this is so important. I love sharing things that can, really make a difference in people's lives. And they're not hard to do. That's the other thing.
They're not hard to do. I tell this story because my parents growing up, I have my mom who was super active growing up, golfed 3 times a week back when you had to walk the golf course, lived in a 2-story house, did all her own housework. So it wasn't real resistance training. I tried to get her to do it, but I got nowhere. But, carrying up and down, carrying groceries up and down, so doing all that stuff, it definitely helped her a ton. And she always ate healthy, except she had a little sweet tooth. Contrasted with my dad, who smoked, drank, had high blood pressure, literally would say, bring me butter to put on the cookies. I mean, just kind of a health train wreck. And, growing up, my dad would always talk about his ship was going to come in. He had stock in the company he worked for, and then he was going to get to do all the things he wanted to do in life, right? Like all the things. He wanted to have a boat. And his ship came in, the company sold, and he was literally in my parents' bedroom in a hospice bed dying of lung cancer. And my mom was set because of that, but 20 years of not having her husband, being lonely, and she lived till 93. And, and was completely with it, cognizant, doing her own stuff. We got in a big fight over COVID because I was like, you can't go out and go to the grocery store. I'm going. I'm like, it's like, but it just made me realize, everyone's up in arms about aging. I go, aging is a privilege, the privilege my dad didn't have. But I think what we're afraid of, it's not aging. We're afraid of aging poorly. We're afraid of what I call aging gracefully, of being the person that just keeps doing less and less. And the less you do, the less you can do. And the reality is we need to do more. And the more we do, the more we can do. And all of these things that you're talking about, from lifting heavy to eating protein to taking SHEatine, all these things let you do more. And so when you do that, you age powerfully. And then you have choices, right?
And it really is a choice. It really is a choice, because it's, you can decide how you want to live your life, and committing to this active lifestyle and committing to, to being empowered to do all these great things. I mean, I'm telling you, people tell me so often the diagnosis of osteoporosis was the catalyst. That was usually there's something that's the catalyst to somehow make you I have to do this. I have no choice now. I have to exercise, or I have to change my eating and reduce my stress, all the things we talk about. And then once they do, they realize, wow, every aspect of their life has changed. And
yeah.
So that's how I feel. I really do look at the diagnosis as a way to look at your life, see what you need to add, and then it's just going to enhance it. And that's the work you do, is really enhancing. So thank you for joining.
Hey.
It's always a pleasure to be with you. And
thank you.
I can't wait. I will report back, JJ.
Awesome.
Wow, I hope you enjoyed my interview with JJ as much as I did, and now have a better understanding of creatine, all the amazing benefits in terms of our bones, our brain, our skin. I can't wait to start trying it. And JJ was so kind to offer our community a 10% discount with using the coupon code Margie10. So I'll have that link in the show notes for you. And thank you so much for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.